Hey, welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I am your host, Jason Osborn. And on this podcast, we interview successful business owners for them to share atomic, impactful lessons that they've learned so they can share them all with us. We can all learn together. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that don't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everyone hates. We use this method to book 26 qualified leads and get sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, or endless social media posting. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn. Have a chat. It's Jason A. Osborn. The link will be in the show notes below as well. But for today, our guest is Wyn Morgan. He's the owner of Winning Coaching and Training, and he focuses on transformative coaching and management training. So I'm looking forward to this. So, Wyn, welcome to the show. And I want to jump in by asking a question that I always ask. The question is this: if you had some sort of time machine to go back and go to your younger version of yourself, whenever you're starting off with your first business, what's the biggest piece of advice that yourself now would give your younger self that may have solved or stopped a lot of problems or challenges or heartache in what you were doing growing your business?
The the most honest answer I can give to that is that I wouldn't give myself any advice to spoil the surprises or the learning curve I've been on. But I would say one thing, hey, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is, deep down inside, I've always known that to be true.
Mm.
Um, so that reassuring voice would be the only thing I would ever have searched for now and
Mm.
again in my last, 20 odd years since I started my business.
Yeah, really interesting. Do you know what? My answer would be very similar. And I think it's a very, I don't think most people would answer with that answer. Because I look back and I think, gosh, if I hadn't have learned the things that I had to have learned, I wouldn't have gained the knowledge and experience of it. And I don't know if I would even understand what I was trying to tell myself. Because you just don't know what you don't know. But I agree that reassurance of, do you know what, it'll be okay. And I think sometimes even now I need to remind myself of that because there's always challenges that happen and stuff. So, what do you think is some of the biggest challenges that people have? Because I know you coach and mentor people around this, but what are some of the challenges you think people have with that? Maybe the anxiousness or the anxiety or stuff with business, because whether you're professional or whether you own a business, one of the things I've realized is the more that you grow, you end up just solving problems most of the time. And that can be a very anxious place to be, as you're growing business and things. So what's some advice that you'd give for people around that?
Well, on feeling anxious specifically, I think it's one of the most misunderstood things of our modern era.
Hmm.
Because I've helped a lot of people with anxiety or various forms of when they get very mentally and emotionally tight and get brought down, overwhelm, anxiety, even, panic attacks. Um, it would be a similar vein to imposter syndrome. It all comes under the same banner, really.
Yeah.
But what I didn't know 15, 20 years ago and up until that point was that those feelings, those emotions, they look like they're telling us something meaningful about ourselves. And they're not. What they're telling us is that we're thinking really hard and we humans tend to believe what we think. So
Hmm.
we bear down on that feeling and give it an awful lot more respect than it requires or is in fact true about it. Because any time that um, sometimes when people see through the illusion of what anxiety actually means, the fact that they're thinking really hard about something,
Hmm.
they're mentally then they relax when they see the truth of that. And in a
Yeah.
relaxed mind, problems get resolved an awful lot more easy than in
Yeah.
any other state of mind. And the
Yeah.
lovely thing is, when our state of mind is then higher, we absolutely see through the illusion of what was I so anxious about? But
Hmm.
catching on to that's tricky because we
Yeah.
believe what we think and we think feelings are problems. and they're not.
Yeah. 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 Um, I could talk about this topic for ages because it's something that I mention a lot to my clients as well. And I'd love to hear your perspective on this. When it's the stories that we tell ourselves and make up in our head that we automatically just assume is true. And I think that's what you're alluding to in a lot of ways. Um, what are some of the pieces of advice, or maybe just one piece of advice that you would give people on dealing with that sort of thing?
Well, I think it just takes a little bit of seeing it for what it is, which is not thinking hard about it, because thinking hard about it actually brings us deeper into it and it makes it feel more real. But to take perspective on it, to notice, wait a minute, here's what really helped me. It's not only that is a story, but all I'm ever going to have as a human being is stories.
Hmm.
In our nature as a species, that's true. In the way
Hmm.
that we've evolved to the state where we are these days with a very powerful brain, and the fact that we have myths about ourselves and each other that we therefore believe, which is great for collaborating,
Hmm.
great for working together in society, but noticing our self-worth and our innate born with skills, yeah, it's just we go on a merry dance into Never Neverland of going away from our brilliant innate selves.
Hmm.
And to me, all I would say is for the person listening to this, for you listening and watching this right now, is take a look. Are things, if things go smoothly and you feel and you do your best when you've got more on your mind or less on your mind,
Hmm.
you can get curious about that. That's all I'd say.
Yeah.
Curious without being analytical, because analytical is what we're now heavy thinking, as opposed to light curiosity, open-minded thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Well, let me ask another question that I always love asking if we have time, and we do. So, um, what's the biggest challenge that you faced in your business that at the time was not easy, but looking back at it retrospectively, you're able to see that actually it was one of the best blessings in disguise. And why was that?
The biggest challenge, and this is going to sound potentially a little bit strange, but it's in the same vein as what we were just talking about for the previous few minutes, taking my insecure thinking seriously. So, I'll give you an example. I'd have a thought of a business contact. They'd come to mind, and I'd go, oh, I could really help them and their business. Let's say it's the VP of a multinational. Um, and this is a real example, actually, of someone a few years ago that I thought of, oh, I could really help that person and their business. I don't exactly know how, but I know I could.
Hmm. Yeah.
My next thought is, but they wouldn't want to see me. I'm not as good as I think I am. Maybe they'll think I'm rude, etc., etc. And what I notice with not just myself, but whatever everyone I've ever talked to about this is we have an idea, an insightful, inspirational idea, and then we talk ourselves out of it. I know I will do that for the rest of my life, but I'm really glad to say I'm less good at that than I used to be. I'm less good at talking myself out of inspirational ideas that keep me from taking action just because I have that story that looks real. But
Mm.
and then in the feeling of, well, this keeps me safe away from rejection or annoying somebody else. But all I'm doing is living in a made up future that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So all I can say to that is what's been the biggest blessing in disguise is seeing that for myself so many times of all I do is talk myself out of great ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. Really powerful, and something that um, very similar to you. It's something that I am better at. Still happens, but I'm able to catch myself a lot more often now and be able to play out those scenarios. And um, one of the things that has helped me with that is um, saying, well, it hasn't happened. How do I know it's going to happen that way? And what are the actual other possibilities with that? And one of the questions I always like to ask myself is, what's the worst thing that could happen? And when I start playing that out, I'm like, well, worst thing that happens is they no, or they say, I think you're rude. Well, okay. Well, that's one person out of 6 billion people, and I know I'm not rude. It could have just been, they could have been a bad day. Maybe they get loads of people spamming them or cold calling them, and I just fall into that category perceptually for them. And that really helps out a lot. And so I think it's amazing when we can start changing those stories in our head, and realizing that the story isn't reality. Um,
Yeah. And to me, what's even more powerful than changing the story is realizing any story I make up is a story. There's
mm,
nothing there. Now, I go with you on that. Sometimes I find it helpful to go to, okay, what's the worst that could happen? And sometimes that's helpful and sometimes it's not. Sometimes reframing a story to better one is helpful, but nothing is more powerful than not having one at all, because then we're back in the
mm,
present moment.
yeah.
Our listening is higher, our empathy is higher, our ability to ask great questions is higher because we're not in our heads, we're not analytical, and everything goes better there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, a good story is better than a bad story, but there's nothing better than no story at all and being present.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. No, it's definitely a huge thing that if we can understand it more and just become better and better at it, it is. I'm cautious to use this word because it sounds a little bit, you know, grandiose, but it is quite life transforming when you're able to take control of, or at least manage the stories in our head better.
Yeah, well, to realize, and it took me a while to realize it, and I mean realize the truth of it. When I realize its story, there's nothing to manage, nothing to do, because it's like, what do you do with an illusion? There is nothing there. You don't need to manage something that doesn't exist.
Hmm.
But taking time to see that does take time. But that is, you're right, life changing. It's changed my life and countless other people I've been working with, certainly in the last 10 years, from this
Yeah.
understanding, which elevates everyone's ability to do a great job with none of the stress.
Yeah. And isn't it amazing that the secrets of success we often think are a lot more complicated than what they are? And we think, well, if there's got to be something harder to change it than just changing a story in my head. There has to be, because if it was that easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah. That's a great thing to recognize as well, though our intellect and our ego want to be important, want to be in charge. They
Mm,
want to have jobs to do and problems to solve. And if there's not a problem, they'll say, well, I'll make one up for you then. And then we're back into the illusory land of real problems. And I mean real
mm,
problems in air quotes and inverted commas, because we're
yeah.
making it all up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating. I love this topic because it's been such a big thing for me, to learn, and just having coached people all over the world now over the last 20 years, it's just something I see so prevalent in so many people. And sounds like you've seen the same thing. And it's I always love being able to speak to people that see that as well, because the more people we can help change those stories in their head, or revisit them, or become less impacted by these made up stories that we think's reality. Yeah, it's absolutely life changing. Well, Wyn, listen, I totally got lost to track on time here. Look down, like, oh my gosh, we're right up at the 15 minutes. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to contact you? Is there a website or a social media platform best for you?
I can be easily found with the name of Wyn Morgan. I'm very easily found. There's only two people who really have a presence online. One's an economics professor in Nottingham, UK. That's not me, even though I still get messages for him on LinkedIn. And he gets messages for Wyn Morgan, the coach. So winning, which is WYNNING.co.uk is the website, and Wyn Morgan very easy to find on LinkedIn and all the usual platforms.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Wyn, thank you so much for being on the show. And as a reminder, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everyone hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. It's Jason A. Osborn, and that again will be in the show notes below. Wonderful. Well, have a great rest of your day, Wyn, and to everyone else. And until next time, we'll see you on the next podcast. Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Bye.